we start learning today, I want to tell you two funny stories about melodies that do not come from Moshe Rabbeinu at Sinai, but melodies that we use in the congregation. The two funny stories. Let's see which one I want to tell first. Okay, the first story is, anyone here know the Shemansky family? Michael and Sima, and they've got a beautiful daughter named Lila, who was bat mitzvah about, I think, 3 years ago or so. So Sima's father passed away about 2 years ago, and her father headed up, actually several, but one in particular, a Simcha band in Brooklyn, where she's from. And that Simcha band, with him at the lead, wrote, Eitz Chaim hi lamachazikim ba v'tomechecha me'ushar. Okay, so first of all, that's a wonderful thing to learn at a levaya. Like, that's pretty cool when you're sitting and learning about somebody's life, to learn about what melodies they write. And nice to know that we're sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? We're like sowing the seeds of that melody being known by the next generation in our community. But I asked her a question. I said, how long does the song go? Because songs tend to do it. So Carl Bach will write a melody for one line in a tefillah tune, and then people just extend it to other lines, not just parodies, but I mean in the original place, like Kiva Moed, it shows up in other places, like extended extra verses beyond. So she says the song goes like this. You can sing with me if you like. Eitz chaim hi lamachazikim ba v'tomecha me'ushar. The line repeats. Eitz chaim hi lamachazikim ba v'tomecha me'ushar. Part B. Derachecha darchei noam v'chol netivoteh hashalom. Derachecha darchei noam v'chol netivoteh hashalom. End of the song. That's it. That's the whole song. That's where the song ends. He did not write any more to the melody. So there's this wonderful mystery, which is
who sang it first?
Who? Because we all agree to some degree or another that probably the next part is a nigun. Some people put words to it. It wasn't written by the band. That's not a part of the song. And then most people come back in with Hashivenu Hashem. Where did that come from? She said she has no idea. Do you have a theory, Alan?
Oh, yes.
Okay, what's the theory?
They needed more time to be able to wrap the Torah when it was done, and they had to extend it because of that.
So I like your theory that it was because people needed more time to wrap the Torah, but I'm going to tell you why that's such a funny theory in theory. It's a funny theory in theory because it wasn't written for the liturgy. This all is going to the point of what we're going to talk about a little bit today. All of these, Eitz Chaim hi lamachazikim ba, where is it found? In the Siddur?
Returning the Torah.
Returning the Torah, it's the last paragraph. And my theory also is not just that people needed more time to wrap the Torah. I think the original way it found its way into the Siddur, in my theory, is that people sang it at Eitz Chaim hi, and they've got to finish the paragraph. Because before you close the Aron Kodesh, you need to sing the last line. Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva chadesh yameinu kekerem, which comes from, we just read it, Eicha. Yeah, it's the second to last line of the book of Eicha, which we go back and repeat so we can end on a high note. So I was thinking about it lately. I was actually sitting on the ground as we were reading Eicha and thinking about this song and how interesting it is that this line from Eicha got re-subsumed into this song that was written by. Okay, so that's one funny story. Here's my second funny story of the day. These are things that I think about as a chazan as we go through services, but this one is really interesting and unique. When I was living in Jerusalem, the first time around, I lived there for 2 years. The first time I lived there, I was a cantorial student, primarily studying on the campus of the conservative yeshiva and what was then the Moreshet Yisrael synagogue, and now generally speaking is known as the Fuchsberg Center in Jerusalem, in the heart of Jerusalem. And on Shabbat mornings, I go to as many different services as I possibly could in Israel, generally speaking just to the Shivyoni Minyanim, the gender egalitarian ones. But there were some Minyanim, just like here in Pico Robertson, that did not meet every week. They met on occasion. One of them met on the campus of Hebrew Union College, the Reform Seminary in Jerusalem. And it was not a Reform minyan, it was a Reconstructionist minyan. So Reconstructing Judaism is the new name of that movement. It was founded upon the ideals of Rabbi Kaplan and this Rabbi Mordechai Kaplan, and it has many tenets at its core, one of which is setting aside, eschewing notions of chosenness. So for example, the brachot for taking an aliyah to the Torah in a Reconstructionist setting, this is the first place I was ever exposed to that. Asher Kirvanu, instead of Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim, blessing God for having chosen us from out of or from among other peoples, we get Asher Kirvanu, who brought us close, using the word for korban, for an offering also. So it's lovely, beautiful revisitation of that word. One of the core tefillot in our book, in our Siddur, that tells us about the principle of chosenness is the full prayer of Aleinu, which was originally only found in the Machzor, and eventually it got pretty popular and it became the cornerstone of the end of every single daily service. So every daily service we have, or rather every service that we do daily, ends with Aleinu. The version of Aleinu developed, I don't think it was under Kaplan, I think it's under his students, but don't hold me to that. That part I don't remember. In Reconstructionists, now Reconstructing Judaism, that prayer no longer reads with the typical text. So instead of being Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakol la'teit gedula liotzer breshit shelo asen. What's shelo asanu kegoyei ha'aratzot? Who did not make us like the other peoples of the lands. That's the first line that gets taken out in the Reconstructing Judaism version. Now, what do you do if you've got tefillot in your community, which are so well known, right? Reconstructionist Judaism is just about coming up on 100 years old, depending on how you count. Aleinu has been sung in synagogues for hundreds upon hundreds of years. And people, when you talk about tunes that are from Moshe at Sinai, they're really from 13th century in the Rhineland, but let's just call it like some of the most nostalgic, well-known tunes. Aleinu l'shabeach. If you know a tune from Shul, that's in the top 3. What do you do when you take out a core line? You have to write a new melody. Now, what language stays in the Aleinu? You're welcome to turn to it if it's helpful to you to look at it. There's a phrase that when, unfortunately, I don't know off the top of my head the author. Maybe I'll come back to this group another Saturday afternoon and tell you. If you look at the end of, if you look at Aleinu, you see a phrase that shows up again and again and again. And that phrase, if you look on page, it's the end page, it should be, I think, 80, something like that, in the weekday.
Oh, it's 150.
Or 150, that's from some other service. I was thinking of 83. We see a phrase, take a look at the end of the first big prayer, the paragraph that begins, Shehu Noteh Shamayim. How does that paragraph end?
Ein od.
Ein od. And that phrase shows up at least 3 times in the poem, I believe. In all of Aleinu, Ein od. What does Ein od mean?
No.
There is no other. Now, does Ein od mean that there's no other people like Israel, or that there's no other God like God? There's no other God like God. This still works with the theology and the sense of peoplehood in Reconstructing Judaism. So the author of the new melody for the Reconstructionist Aleinu said, that's the core of the tune. So I'm going to write, Ein od, Ein od, Ein od, Ein od. So the funniest thing in the universe to me is that people heard that melody somewhere. I'm guessing, I'm telling you the story in part so you know that Reform rabbinical students who study on the campus in Jerusalem may have gone to a Reconstructionist minyan on campus, heard this beautiful tune, but even in Reform synagogues, most of the text of Aleinu that appears in the Siddurim are the same as our text. And they start grafting this melody back into the Aleinu text that we use in our Siddurim. So we're taking this tune that was written so that we could completely rethink what Aleinu is, and we're putting it back into the Aleinu text that's in our Siddur. This is how synagogue music works. So I wanted to give you, first of all, I think it's fun for when people ask what do cantors think about when we think about the deep Torah of tefillah and Torah qua Torah. This is what I think about. Right? How do tunes get to be the way that they are, and how do we start to include things in the Siddur and attach melodies to them? There are almost always histories and stories behind them.
Let me just say,
Please add. Oh, you want to grab the microphone? Yeah.
Einod comes to another element, which is we have a prayer in the Machzor that we lie about. When we say V'chol Ma'aminim, everybody believes. Now, everybody doesn't believe. But what is the one thing that virtually all Jews do believe? They believe that at most there is one God.
Right.
And consequently, when you say Ein Od, that is a code where everybody can agree with that, which is you do not have any serious movement of Jews that are polytheists. You have
That's
multiple Jews who are atheists, but no Jews who are polytheists. So Ein Od is something that even Reconstructionists can agree upon, even if they do not have a personal God in the various sense of it.
That's right. And what's so wonderful about that agreement and that core concept is that it's not something that they put into the Siddur instead of Aleinu. The folks who were taking a look at the reconstruction of Siddur and reimagining what that prayer would be chose something, selected something that came out of the Aleinu that all of us know. They didn't say, now we're going to add the Shema in at this point, for example, as a sense of oneness, but they're picking something that comes out. And it really needs to be grown. It needs to be grown out of the same soil as the other tefillot. So they're choosing a phrase we can all agree upon that was right there. As an aside, as a parentheses, just because you're right, there is no serious sect of Judaism that practices polytheism. Sometime you can choose to take a class with me on tefillah and on our Siddur, and I'll point out to you all the places where we seem to be hinting at the fact that maybe there is more than one God, because it did take Jews quite some time to come to the conclusion that there was only one God. At some point we had to convert. Right? That was a discovery. And for example, the line Micha Mocha that we sing in the Siddur, which comes from Shirat Hayam, which is the earliest prayer that we have, the Song of the Sea, that line preserves the phrase Micha Mocha Ba Elim Adonai, who is like you, not Ein Od, there's none other like you, but as a rhetorical question, Micha Mocha Ba, among the Elim, among the gods, God.
I mean,
The Psalm for Tuesday is that'll really throw you on this point. Yes, Brian.
I mean, to your point, even in the Aleinu, "Ha'aviu gilulim min haaretz v'ha'elilim kadot ikaretun," you already have this sort of, I'm going to say, henotheist idea in the Aleinu hymn.
Right. In the Aleinu hymn, you still have fragments left over of this idea that God is the greatest God, the most powerful God, but not that necessitates that God's not the only God. We'll leave that one aside for another time. And instead, I'll invite you, if you've got this Siddur out in front of you, to pull up page 30. And if you have Lev Shalem in front of you, you'll open to page 150. If you've ever seen me officiate at a bar or bat mitzvah, you know that I call kids up to the bima with a nigun that was written by Rabbi Josh Warshawski that goes, hum ha 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 hum ha ha ha. Now, what song is that of his? What's the name of that song? Anyone know? It's called, I thought maybe there was a die-hard Warshawski fan in here, okay? That song is called Hameira. Hameira. If you're looking at the page 30 in the weekday Siddur, the words that we get to just after the Baruch Hu are Hameir la'aretz v'ladarim aleha berachamim. These are the words that he wrote this to, but Rabbi Warshawski deliberately feminized the word as if it's the Shekhinah, the feminine presence of the Godhead, who is doing the thing that we're going to talk about, Hameir, shining or illuminating on the earth. So the song goes, Hameira, 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 La'aretz, Viladarim aleha, viladarim aleha, viladarim aleha, viladarim aleha, viladarim aleha, virachamim. Part B of the song, or C, I guess, goes, Uvtuvo mechadesh bechol yom tamid, and then repeats that first part and goes, Maaseh Bereshit. Those are the words we're going to talk about today in our Torah study. Take a look at the quote from Parshat Re'eh. Look at the source sheet, the very first source I give you is from Parshat Re'eh. Re'eh anochi, see, today I noten lifnechem, put before you, hayom, today, bracha uklala, blessing and curse. I cannot get Safaria to cooperate with me, so I apologize, but please flip to the back side. The next text that we're going to look at is the one that's inset, indented, Rashi, on this text. Rashi takes a look at this text and says the expected thing. What do we expect him to say? There's an extraneous word here. What is the extraneous word according to Rashi? Take a look at the commentary.
Hayom?
Hayom. Hayom is the extraneous word. If someone pulls you aside, whether it's your boss or your parent, and says, I need you to take care of this, what does it mean if they add the word today? What does that mean?
Now.
Yeah, now. Okay, now. The means today, but what do they mean by now?
Like, right.
Don't forget.
Immediate.
Immediately. I don't even want to wait another moment until this happens. Hayom, it adds urgency. But is it necessary to give the message, I need you to take care of this, means I need you to take care of this, right? And presumably, if somebody says it with the right tone, I need you to take care of this, they mean now and they mean today. So Rashi takes a look at Midrash Tanchuma, which is a very old, even ancient collection of Midrashim, and says the following, Bechol Yom, every day, Yihiyu ve'einecha chadashim ke'ilu vo vayom nitztaveta alehem. Every day you should experience, it's as if in your eyes this is something brand new. I like the parenthetical translation. In other words, you haven't gotten sick of it. You haven't tired of it. What's the it? What is God asking us to do? What do we call things that God asks us to do? Commandments, mitzvot. You should experience commandments as if you were just asked to do them for the first time. Now, what happens when someone asks you to do something for a fourth time? You're like, first of all, you already told me. Second of all, I'm sorry, there's probably a good reason I haven't gotten to it yet, right? Or maybe you're just tired of being told, right? And that's what we often hear. I'm not going to throw any of my own kids under the bus, but I'll just say when I'm teaching, when I remind kids something that I remind them every class, they go, we know, Cantor Chorny, we know, I know, right? Usually when we're reminded to do something, even if we need the reminder, and even if that thing is important as of that day, we say, I know, because we're tired of being told to do so, or we don't think of it as something that we're being told to do for the first time. Rashi takes a look at this Hayom and says, every day, the commandment is renewed. God is asking you to teach this Torah to your children, just to go back to something that we heard in the last couple parshas, our paragraphs of the Shema. Teach these mitzvot to your children. Every day you should wake up and say, okay, today I'm receiving from God the commandment to teach this Torah to my children. It's a matter of refreshing what the mitzvot are. I want you to take a look, if you have Lev Shalem in front of you, okay? Lev Shalem, do we have more time on Shabbat morning or less than on a Tuesday morning? Less time. On a Shabbat morning, do we have more or less time?
The same.
The same amount of time. This is very interesting. When you come to services on a Shabbat morning, those of you who come to Daily Minyan, let me ask this there are a lot of Daily Minyan goers. Do you feel like you have more time to give, less of a rush, less looking at your watch On a Shabbat morning or on a Tuesday morning?
On a Tuesday. I feel like I have more time on a Tuesday because I'm thinking it's 9:30. I know there's manim. We have to get to the Shema by such and such point.
Okay.
I'm thinking like halachically.
If you start too late, like we do at 9:15 or 9:30, it puts you in a rush. But ultimately, do most people have to get to work in a perfect world, right? The world the Siddur is imagining. You don't have to like get anywhere, right? In theory, it's very hard if you
are where you should be.
right, you are where you should be. If your day job is not being a rabbi, right? It's not us, right? It's not for us. It's for the people.
Being a rabbi, you are where you should be also.
That's right. You're where you should be if you're a rabbi also. But if your day job is you need to get to car line duty because you're a teacher, if you need to get to the office to punch your card in, you got to rush on a Tuesday. Ideally, this is not true for everyone, but ideally, if you're there in services, you've taken off the morning to enjoy Shabbat and have longer time. The reason why I asked about this is because this is the basis for the principle that most of the tefillot that we have on Shabbat mornings take the core of weekday and just extend them. The exception to this is the Amidah. We take the longer Amidah from weekdays, which is full of bakashot, full of requests, and we reduce it down to a gratitude set for thanking God for giving us Shabbat. But everywhere else, we take our regular stuff and we expand it because we have the time to do it. For example, adding in Eladon, which is on page 151. But even before we get to that, on page 150, hold your finger on that page. Look on page 149. Got the Baruch Hu. The Baruch Hu is the same on a Shabbat morning as it is on a Tuesday morning. We turn the page. We get to Yotzer Or Vorei Choshach, not for us to study today, but a very interesting prayer unto itself. And then we get to this long paragraph that begins, Hakol Yoducha ve'akol Yeshabachucha ve'hakol Yomeru en Kadosh Kadonai. It's a poem. Everything is awesome. Everything is awesome poem. Okay. Follow all the way down about 9 lines down the page and you get to the same text that we say on a weekday. Umeir la'olam kulo. Ulyoshvav shebara b'midat rachamim, hameir la'aretz v'ladarim aleha berachamim. God shines, God is the one who shines, God, you who shine onto the earth, and ladarim aleha berachamim, and all of the people or the creatures or the spirits who inhabit it with mercy. Uvtuvo mechadesh bechol yom tavid. And its goodness, what's mechadesh? Renew, taking chadash and putting it in a verb form that tells us that we're making it brand new. Mechadesh, it's an active form. We are renewing it. Bechol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reishit. What's being renewed every single day? The acts of creation. It's like the grass coming out of the ground freshly is just as new as the first day. Which day of creation did God have the green stuff growing out of the ground? Anyone a master at this? Which day did the trees and the forests? Yeah, exactly, the fourth day. So the fourth day we get the desha, and right here we learn that we're imagining that the grass is growing every day as if God is doing the act of creation fresh every single day. But what lesson can we derive from this? We're going to see two. One, flip back to the first page of the source sheet, looking at the Kedushat Levi, a piece of Chassidut on this. Lichora. Okay. When you take a look at it at first, Tevat Hayom, this word Hayom, Eino Muvan. It seems like there's no meaning here because we don't need this word. As I pointed out, it seems extraneous. Ach diyadua she'akadosh baruch hu mechadesh betuvo bechol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reishit. As we know, parenthetically, because we're all davening, we're all doing tefillot every day. We read this line 7 days a week, that God is mechadesh betuvo b'chol yom ma'aseh b'reishit. God renews the creations every day. Dehu yiparach nutem b'chol yom, that God on high, the Blessed One, gives every single day beherut chadash. Maspia chasidim chadashim ve'adam ha'oved shemo yiparach mikabel ala b'chol yom behirut v'shekol chadash ma shelo haya yadua etmol. God provides this new kind of behirut. What does it mean to achieve enlightenment, to have something enlightened? It has two meanings. First of all, what's the plainest meaning? To have light shining on something? What's the basic meaning? I'm shining a light on something means I can see it. I just put a light on it. God literally spotlights it for us. What's the less plain meaning of enlightened? What does enlightenment mean? As a movement in 19th century Germany, for example, what does enlightenment mean? More freedom. Oh, more freedom. Interesting. So freedom of thought. More freedom of thought. And enlightenment in a technical way, when we think about being enlightened, what that might mean is that we have new meaning, like a light bulb going off over our head. Aha. We've achieved, if you're thinking about Eastern traditions and the way that we ruminate or meditate on simple concepts, we keep thinking about the same basic concepts again and again because, aha, we come across a new understanding of it every day.
In English, it can also be you have less burden.
You have less burden?
Burden because you're lighter.
Nice. So there's a double entendre to be had in English that Michael points out. Enlightenment means you are less burdened. Perhaps you're less stymied. You're less confused by this revelation. What the Kedushat Levi says here is that people who serve God, those who come to the prayer book to try to pray and do avodah, one way of thinking of avodah is to complete the services. People who are doing avodat Hashem, they actually get a new insight every day. Every day they can achieve a new understanding of what is in front of them. So what do we understand from this? V'zehu shekatuv, re'eh anochi noten lifnechem hayom. Look, this is how I'm helping you understand it today, God says. Al derech she'amru hachamenu, as our sages said, and as we put in the Siddur, b'chol yom yihiyu be'einecha kechadashim. As if every day you're getting these gifts of understanding brand new, that you're commanded them brand new, and it means something new. It's a screed against boredom. You should never think that you're supposed to come out of a service thinking the same thing as you did the day before. You're never supposed to look at the same tree. My children and I have a tree that we like to visit when we go to get frozen yogurt. We've named him Jeff. I don't know why. One of them named him Jeff. And every time we visit Jeff, the tree, I think this is a shining example. You'll tell me if it makes any sense. Jeff has sometimes gotten a tree haircut. Sometimes the gardeners have come by and Jeff doesn't have any leaves. Sometimes the leaves on Jeff, which are, what do you call it, deciduous tree, the ones that change, sometimes the leaves are brown, they're not green. Sometimes Jeff looks like he could use some water, and we water Jeff a little bit with our leftover water that we get from a cup when we get frozen yogurt. When you encounter little bits of creation, you should see them brand new every day. How many of you have a plant in your garden that occasionally you notice, wow, it really grew, right? All of a sudden, that we have an agave plant in our front yard that is having some sort of a bloom experience right now that I haven't seen since we moved there in 2021. Every day there's something new to see, and not just in the acts of creation or the elements of creation. There's something new to be understood from the prayer book every single day. You can look at the same words again and again and again. Phrases like ein od, there is no other. And today, ideally, God is giving you an opportunity to understand it completely differently than you understood it yesterday. My teacher, Rabbi Daniel Goldfarb, and we'll end with this and then do a Kaddish D'Rabbanan and we'll bench. Not in that order, we'll bench to Kaddish D'Rabbanan. But first, my teacher, Rabbi Daniel Goldfarb, that first year that I was living in Jerusalem when I went to this minyan and learned Ein Od for the first time, he taught something on Parshat Va'etchanan about the idea of certain times being auspicious. This idea that we receive things hayom or be'et hahi, this idea that we receive something at a particular time is meant to teach us something. He says, at what time, this is from a small excerpt from Parshat Va'etchanan, in which we learn, you can take a look in your Chumash if you have one in front of you, chapter 3, verse 23. What is Be'et Hahi here? Rabbi Yisrael Salanter was the head of the Musar movement, teaching us how to live well, live good lives. He said that a person should not put off prayer or study and say, I'm too busy, or more specifically, I'm not in the mood. But Be'et Hahi, at this time, here and now, it is already an appropriate time for prayer. He quotes one of the rabbis of the Amshinov Hasidic dynasty, which comes from like the middle of the 19th century. Rav Yaakov David Kalish says, Davka, Moses' intention was for the future because there would be times when it was troubling for the Jewish people to pray, when it would be hard for them to pray b'chavanah, in earnest. He prayed that at such times that God accept the pain in their hearts or the words of their lips as prayer. Lest you think that we ought to live every day in wonderment. Look at that wonderful agave plant. Look at Jeff and his new leaf haircut. As if we were to look around the world at the words in our siddur, at the trees or the grass growing in our yards or on the street, and say, wow, what a wonderful thing. That we should also understand that enlightenment can sometimes mean revelations that make us quite sad or are troubled, or can look in the text and find a salve for something that's troubling us at that moment. It's not just a Pollyannish way of looking at the world, as if it's being given to us as a brand new opportunity every day. When we say that we've reached nearly 700 days of this war in Israel, we're not renewing a positive energy necessarily every day. We can still be full of hope. But when we get to that, yet another day, when we pray that prayer for the hostages and for Tzahal and for the state of Israel every day, we sometimes pray that with a new sense of dejectedness, a new sense of fear. But that sense being new is the very thing that's being asked of us, not just positivity. I hope that those positive new revelations outweigh the negative ones. But most of all, I hope that you feel when you come across these words, mechadesh b'tuvo b'chol yom ma'aseh b'reishit, that every day you have a new opportunity, that you are given an opportunity every moment, every time you turn a corner, to decide that you feel differently about the words in front of you or the things that you see plainly in front of you. You get the last word, Alan Brody. Oh, this is going to be good. Okay.
All right. So this is something, this verse is one of the two sections that every day I make sure I focus on. Why? What's so important? And you've hit on it about renewing the commitment to God in each and every day. But there's something I learned from Dr. Elliot Dorff, Rabbi Elliot Dorff, over 50 years ago. She said that Adam shutaf ma'aseh b'reishit, that we humans are partners with God in the act of creation. So each and every day I look at this, that God can renew in goodness each and every day. So too we're partners in God, and it gives us, each and every one of us, the opportunity to renew ourselves, to learn something new, to create something new each and every day.
And look, you gave me something new on this verse, renewing my understanding of it today. Thank you for sharing that with us, Alan.